Hello, everybody, and welcome back to that Milan podcast special Friday episode edition. So many storylines going on this January. Martino Puccio, Matt Santangelo, alongside me as always. Matt, always good to see another victory from Milan. This time against Girona. We'll get into that a little bit, but how are you doing?
Tired, tired. Yeah, but show must go on. We're approaching match day 22 for Milan, which is obviously a crucial one. They're all crucial, but
I think
between
it's
that and the
21.
Champions League and the market, it's obviously nonstop. So I'll just maybe start off the episode by thanking everybody for sticking with
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, match day 21 for Milan, technically.
Yeah, yeah,
22 overall because of the Bologna makeup. But yeah, I mean, the good news is Milan beat Girona and move ever so closely to getting a bye in the Champions League, which would be huge fiscally, huge for rotation and resting for this club. Um, they played Dinamo Zagreb in their final match. They just have to get a draw, and they are into the top eight. Really good UCL campaign. The first time in 20 years that they won 5 straight matches in the Champions League.
Mhm.
Really speaks volumes about to where they've been at. And they started off with 2 straight losses.
Yeah.
That was to Liverpool and Leverkusen, obviously really difficult opponents, which we knew. The surprise against Real Madrid, but the rest taking care of business. Girona was no different. This one could have gone a little differently. There were some chances for Girona, no doubt about it. But this was, in my opinion, after being watched on delay, this was Milan's match. The amount of blown chances in this one, incredibly frustrating. Nothing new for this club. Rafael Leao and Benacer, the heroes in this one. Benacer finally looking like a vintage version of himself. Again, applaud him for that performance, but we need to see that on a consistent basis. And then Rafa being the difference once again. He's been dynamite in the Champions League. So, I mean, again, speak to it. It wasn't the prettiest of 90 minutes, but I thought Milan kind of played well overall. The finishing just sucked, and that's usually the storyline. But hey, 3 points is 3 points. Girona is a respectable opponent, regardless of what they've kind of done in the Champions League so far this year. But again, Milan, this is, I mean, it's great. Regardless, guys, forget about Serie A for a moment. Top eight in the Champions League is huge. And if they just get this draw, it'll be a fantastic kind of path for them.
Absolutely. You mentioned 5 straight Champions League victories after a pretty brutal start. And we frankly expected that. When you see Liverpool on there, who is probably the favorite to win the Premier League in many's eyes. Then you see Leverkusen, who did what they did last year. And then you see Real Madrid. It's never going to be easy. Everyone was kind of circling the backlog of fixtures in the Champions League as okay, Milan need to make up the ground here and they need to take care of business, and they have. So credit to them. And look, despite all the kind of turmoil, chaos surrounding this team on a weekly basis, daily basis, um, Fonseca as the coach was able to get some key results. The guys were able to step up despite less than convincing performances domestically.
Yeah.
And yeah, Sergio Conceição in front of the San Siro crowd gets his first Champions League victory as Milan coach, which that's obviously a good thing for him. It's a good thing for the club. Now, obviously, there were several kind of storylines, takeaways from this game.
In the first
Benacer, you
5 minutes.
mentioned getting the assist to Rafael Leao. Great individual goal there as well. But also, we want to give our flowers to Benacer. He's been coming under some criticism lately for some of his play, and I think a lot of it has been warranted. I think we're expecting
Yes.
more from him, and we haven't seen it. And I think that's more where the frustration lies than anything else. There's isn't an agenda. It's we've seen what a really good performing Benacer looks like, and we're all craving for that back because obviously we know how important that could be for us. So really good performance by him. Layout with the finish as you mentioned, and Pavlovic. Amidst all the talk around his future, he put in a pretty good performance. I think obviously his future's still in doubt. There's a lot of reports going around right now.
Mm.
Emerson starts, he gets injured. That's I'm not surprised. Like I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I'm more so the fact that he was as close as he was to a potential deal, and he starts, and then he gets injured, and it's like, okay, you should have saw
So
this
many
coming and
people to blame.
prepared a little bit better for this. But Calabria stepped in and did a really good job. I think he actually made like Champions League Team of the Week, which is kind of interesting. Take what you
He
want
is
from that, but
suspended for the next match,
and he
so
is,
they're gonna
yeah,
have
and
to
he
go for Terracciano or Gimenez, or you could see Musa playing right
well,
back.
Jimenez, I don't know if he's on the Champions League roster.
Well, even then
It would
it's
be it
like
would
the
probably have to
Terracciano.
be
So
Terracciano
Terracciano will
in
be
a
likely starting against Zagreb
yeah.
because Calabria got suspended, which is so funny because I can't even
Yeah,
remember last time he was playing in the UCL that he gets
yeah.
the suspension.
And yeah, there were moments that Milan was kind of hanging in the balance. Some really good key saves from Mike Magnon. So
Yeah,
big shout out
great
to him.
game.
He feels like the captain these days. I don't know about
Yeah,
how you feel about that, but I feel like he feels like our reference point within this
I mean
team.
he
And
clearly has been since he
yeah,
arrived, in my
yeah,
opinion. But that's just
um,
yeah, my
yeah.
take
And
on it.
then look, Girona had some moments in this match. There's make no mistake about it. This wasn't a dominant 1-0 scoreline, and those scorelines obviously never really come that often. 1-0 is it could be a matter of a moment, right? But in this match, Milan could have had more goals in the first half, missed their chances, so kind of a recurring theme there. But the goal that Brian Gill scored, I think, right, the one that got ruled offside by VAR. I don't know if you got happened to catch that. That left-footed
Hmm.
finish was
Yeah,
fantastic. And when they went to the replay, like the actual show, like the graphic and the image of like where the line ran and all that stuff, man, he was off by, I'm not even kidding you, like a toe. It's offside, and that's the rule. So fine. But man, like I think that's not being talked about that much, where
yeah.
that is basically the margin where Milan could have went from having a victory here to having a draw. So look, I'll
Yeah,
end
but
it
so
with
what?
this.
So that you could say that against Juve too,
Of course.
honestly. You know
But
what I mean?
Martino, like I'm just saying to you, like Milan. My point being is that Milan aren't playing, so they're getting results,
Yeah, I
and
know.
they're not
That's
playing
what I
good
was saying in my
football. And
initial
I know
statement.
this is kind of what we've been talking about that we want from them is just to get results. But again, like at some point, where it begs the question, like when do we start getting some consistent play? That's kind of where I'm at. But
Well, yeah, I know, but that's what I was saying at the start. Girona had chances too, but so did Milan. So
yeah,
in my eyes, it's negated.
yeah.
Like we could play devil's advocate like that. I totally get what you're saying, but you're not gonna put in a full 90-minute performance when the club is in turmoil like it is, and you have injuries and you have all these other situations. But yeah, I don't care. The 3 points are
Just
in.
doing the game. Yeah.
It's a huge step forward to getting to the round of 16, which would be massive for them for so many reasons. So we'll see how that goes. Now into the news of talking figures. Anytime Milan get linked to some player, Santiago Gimenez drops a fantastic performance against Bayern Munich of all teams. Gets a brace for Feyenoord. A name that has been linked with Milan. We've gone through videos for over a year now and podcasts of strikers that have been linked from Xerxes to Sesko to I mean Jimenez himself, Jonathan David. And funnily enough, Jimenez was one of the players we never did a specific profile on.
Mhm.
We'll try and get on a guest as soon as possible if this picks up more traction, but Jimenez kind of syncs up and aligns where Milan are at. You've kind of heard cold tracks when it comes to Tammy Abraham and his future. We see Alvaro Morata's heat map once again. It's all defensive actions. As many people were pointing out, he's the first ever defensive striker in history. And listen, I get it. This is the point where I was making about Camarda that you can't guarantee what he's going to do for your club immediately. And quite honestly, Jimenez is one of these players in terms of experience, cost, playing with pressure. Feyenoord is a relatively big club in Holland. And again, he plays for a huge high pressure national team in El Tri in Mexico. Regardless of what you think the standard of CONCACAF is one thing, but Jimenez is a legacy name as well. His father was a professional player. And let's face it, anytime you play for a country like Mexico where expectations are high and there's a lot of pressure to win, especially in the generation of Mexican players that he's playing in, where they've taken a step back from where they've been in the
Mhm.
past, and I think there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. Jimenez is one of these players that I think eventually, sure, he's not my number one, but you have to take a swing. You have to take a swing on a striker, and when it comes down to it, how many options are out there? How many are out there that had this type of experience, goal scoring ability that we have seen in the Champions League? I'm not fully on board. I'm not fully against. If if they think that they can get a deal anywhere around that 40 million range, I don't believe it's going to be less than 40 million. I think if you think that, you're playing yourself. This is the striker position for a proven player. Sorry, the prices aren't cheap like you want it to be. So ultimately, I think Jimenez could make some sense. I think this also is the writing on the wall for players like Jovic, as we knew, going to leave. Tammy Abraham, I think this also means like there's no chance that he returns. Morata's future very much up in the air in general, but I think Jimenez is sort of this moment in signing where I think people like Moncada feel the hot seat that there needs to be a signing here. There needs to be goals. Because, sure, you talk about it every week, 90 minutes. Milan don't put together these great performances. But we also mention how, hey, if Milan could finish their chances, they'd be in a much different spot. Uh, exactly what happened against Girona. Musa had one of those crosses, by the way, where I know some people got angry at him for, I guess, not shooting, but there was no striker in the middle of the area when he sent in that ball. It was a low driving ball. If you have a poacher in there, you score, and that's not necessarily on Musa. So I thought that one was a little bit harsh. Jimenez, I know you haven't seen too much of him or know too much, but the perspective idea of just kind of going in January and trying to make this sort of signing with a week or so left.
I'm not going to come on here and say I've watched an extensive amount of Santiago Gimenez. I know he was a name that was kind of being tossed around when Milan were in the search for the striker last summer. Not so much by these big media outlets and journalists, but more so around the fan base. I feel like the fan base has a pretty good pulse on you know identifying an area of need and then identifying a list of players that could fit the billing. And Santiago Gimenez was one. And obviously, as you mentioned, right, the market for strikers is it's so it's ballooning. It's ballooning by the mark, by the week, by the month, right? With the way that certain players are performing and how performances in the Champions League ultimately factor into valuations and fees and such. But in the case of Jimenez, from what I have seen and from those I've kind of interacted with on Twitter regarding his profile, he seems more or less like the type of striker that Milan do need. He's pretty physical, so I do like that aspect of his game. The fact that he can
Yeah.
withstand in a league like Serie A, where you're going to need to have that physicality in the box and that understanding to maybe play back to goal and fend off the big physical defenders, right? But I think the more so the focus with any signing that Milan makes in this department is can he score? And I was looking at some of the numbers he put up, Jimenez, and I know it's in the Dutch First Division. It's not Serie A, it's not the Premier League, it's not Spain, but the numbers do jump off the page. And he is a young striker. He's 23. This isn't a full-on project player where you're getting him at 2021 like a Santiago Castro from Bologna, where it's like he's young, he's going to have to take that time. You're buying a player of Santiago Gimenez's profile and age and qualities with the expectation that you can insert him right away and he can give you goals. And I think that's obviously what Milan need, is someone that can score. They don't need this pressing, high energy, creative number 9 like a Joshua Zirkzee type. I think they need, with this current Milan, a striker that simply can convert and put the ball in the back of the net. He can get 15, 20 touches in a game and score 1 or 2 goals. If he puts the ball in the back of the net, with the guys that we have in creative areas like Pulisic, Leao, Chukwueze, and who knows, maybe we do go after a number 10 at some point. Maybe Tijani is someone that we can kind of reliably put in that number 10 role going forward, because it looks like he has played there in recent weeks quite a bit. Then I think we have something there. But, I think, again, we can truthfully talk so much about the player and whether or not he's a good fit. The fact of the matter is this: I think Milan's only obstacle and biggest enemy is themselves and their unwillingness to commit more than 20 to 25 million for a player. And based on what I was reading from Matteo Morato yesterday, late last night when the reports came out, was that Milan are lodging a bid or have lodged a bid for Jimenez, who is keen. I don't think that's a secret, despite him pointing to the badge and pointing down when he scored the goals on the
Shout out
opening match
Hakimi,
day, right? That really doesn't hold that much weight to me. If Milan came calling for him and he got an offer, he would jump. It's just a matter of whether or not
Di Marzio
they
also
were.
said that he's holding out for Milan. So
it's just a matter of whether or not Milan and Feyenoord can agree on a deal. I think personal terms have been agreed the last thing I checked. So I
yeah,
guess
I
we'll
have
have
that
to
up.
wait and see. But yeah, Moretto did state that right now the feeling is that the bid would be somewhere around 30 million. And obviously, you guys are seeing the figures there from
This
Inter
is for
Milan and Luca
Luca
Minetti. But
Magnetti of separate
yeah,
money.
I just think that truthfully, we have to wait and see whether or not Milan are going to get out of their comfort zone, whether Moncada and this management's going to step up to the plate and really try to address this area. I agree with you, Martino, that I'm not completely sold that this guy is the end all be all. He's the solution. He's the right guy. But I think at some point, when you see Milan have a profound lack of clinical finishing in the box, you have to kind of take a stab at dart throw and say, like, we've done our research, we've done our review of the player, and we've evaluated him extensively to the point where this is the player that we're going to invest in. And I think at some point it has to happen. If not now, then maybe it never happens with this team, because I don't see where they're
And
going.
40 million isn't even that much. Still wouldn't be their record deal, by the way. So
Yeah.
it's it's just insane. Luca Magnetti says that there has been an agreement with Gimenez. He would earn 3 million net per season until 2028. Not that long, anyways. Feyenoord, there's no agreement. They want at least 40
Yeah.
million, which again, like none of this is shocking. Like
Yeah.
just shut up and pay. You're gonna get all this money in from player sales. CDK, Kalulu, Adley. You just got a ton of money for winning the Super Cup. So like it's sort of like what were the excuses? And then this topic that I'm going to be bringing up right now in Milan's finances. Once again, another public report that highlights how great Milan are doing on the financial side of things with Deloitte, showing that Milan are the highest generating financial team in Serie A in all of Italy, and we're a disgrace right now. So what does that say? What does that say about this team? That they're able to do this, but they're not investing like it. By the way, they could afford to do 40. They could afford to do 50. There's no FFP restrictions this summer. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. That's why everyone's even more annoyed about these sort of things. And guys, just because they're not investing like it doesn't mean you should feel negative, or get annoyed at this sort of stuff. This stuff is still very important. The fact that they're in this financial position is a good thing. We just don't like how they're using their position currently. I think we all agree on that. I think those are two different things that people need to realize in this
Mm-hmm.
moment. That yeah, sure, there's one thing in saying that Milan should be more ambitious. We all agree on that, but
Yeah.
we can't just be saying like, oh, put up the trophy, raise the banner, all this sort of shit, because they have a financial trophy. It matters, guys.
It
Guess
does.
what?
Yeah.
For years they didn't have it. They weren't even able to if they wanted to, right? Like in the mid 2010s. They weren't able to spend for anybody if they wanted to because they don't have that money. Now they do. Now I understand why people are annoyed. Um yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. Obviously, ticket sales, like people are going to point to that kind of stuff, guys. That's match day. But when it comes to broadcasting and commercial revenue, it's not even close. Milan generating 38 million more
Yeah.
in euro compared to Inter. Do you realize that? These are some of the best Inter teams of the last 20 years since those great Inter teams. And they're not even close to generating to what Milan are. Do you understand this? Like, this is the juggernaut. This is the sleeping giant that is Milan, and why people get so frustrated. And again, just another thing as well, when it comes down to broadcasting, a lot of those figures had to do with Champions League football.
Mm.
Obviously, Milan getting knocked down to the Europa League, not advancing, and that speaks volumes out to where they were generating. Just your quick thoughts on it. I mean, I would assume this makes you a little bit more frustrated as a supporter than anything.
I mean, yeah, but the numbers, I don't like, without telling me the numbers, we've heard this for months. Like, this has
Yeah,
come out. Milans have reported their best revenues in 2 decades. Like, we without hearing the numbers, like, we knew Milan were in a good position. This
yeah.
obviously just further validates it, because obviously the source is very legitimate, Deloitte. It's also the fact that it kind of shows you clear as day where they stack up amongst some of the European superpowers, and
Yeah,
where they stack
I'll,
up
I'll
against
repost.
some of the other teams they're competing with in Italy, which I think is a more broader conversation, should be more of the focus here. Because for a league that obviously has its own issues with how they market, brand, the league and also their TV deals in relation to, the Premier League and so on and so forth, the fact that they're still 13th when they sit where they do in the table, when you look at also the fact that their markets haven't been as kind of profound and wow, Milan are spending 120 million on players. Like, stop the presses here. Like, they're still kind of cutting corners and doing all these things. And on top
Yeah.
of that, they are also shaving their wage bill. They're getting rid of players. The wages have come a long way in the past couple of years relative to what we had
Yeah, yeah,
seen and
of course.
witnessed in previous
And
years.
it's still
And
not
then you
much.
also throw in the fact that they're a regular in the Champions League, right? They're making some pretty good runs over the past couple years, right? This year, obviously, you mentioned it, right? I think they only need a draw to advance to the
Yeah, yeah. So it would be to
yeah,
the 16. If not, then I
yeah,
mean, they're still through,
right.
regardless. Yeah.
And then the latest was they raised prices for the Champions League game. Obviously, that's going to have the fan base feeling some type of way, but that's where the issue lies, right? Where it's like you don't have there's no excuse now. There's no excuses, and we've been saying this for months. There's no excuses. You're bending fans over the barrel for higher prices, right? Which fans, in my opinion, they can say, I can stomach a ticket increase, provided you're putting all your effort into putting a better product on the field, right? You pay for
Well,
quality.
yeah.
You pay for
Yeah,
quality, right?
what the Yankees fans say, they pay all those prices for the chicken
For the
buckets. They're
chicken
like,
basket and the
yeah,
beers and all these sorts
yeah.
of things, right?
Like,
So
we'll
like,
pay that if you sign the best players.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. So like, but ultimately, these guys managing and owning this and running this team, obviously they have their financial and economic and money cap on at all times, which I understand, to your point, like, is important. But they're looking at this and thinking, well, I mean, for how upset the fans are, for all the ultras showing up to the 125th anniversary, how pissed they are and everything, the numbers still show that people are buying jerseys. They're still going to games. They're still making the trip out for away days. So something's got to give. Either fans stop going to the games and you say, we're not going to the games, we're not buying merchandise, and we're not traveling with you
Yeah.
guys unless you guys put the money that you're taking from us by raising all these prices back into the club. So again, like, we're in the US, right? So like, we can really only do so much as far as our contributions to the clubs and the numbers that you guys are seeing on the screen, right? As far as buying jerseys, all these sorts of things and whatever. And we have our meetups with our local clubs. But those that are directly going to these games and complaining about the ticket prices and all these sorts of outrageous increases, you'd have to, if you're not happy with it, you have to have some action. I know you love the club, but like, the truth of the matter is this: until they change their ways, this is what it is. So until they go out there and go and get a Santiago Gimenez priced player,
Yeah, yeah.
then there's nothing else for me to say, because I'm not getting any of that money. Martino, you're not. It's great. It's good. It's
We
good that
wish.
we're financially stable, but we're not seeing that money on the product on the field or in that whole ranking.
And like we said, once we knew the financial fair play restrictions had been lifted for this
Yeah,
coming summer, there's literally zero
right.
excuses. There's none. There's none. Heading into this weekend, speaking of zero excuses, match against Parma at home for you guys over here in North America, 6:30 a.m. wake up call here on the East Coast. Shout out to Gio, who was all the way out on the West Coast, getting up for like 3:30 a.m. wake ups. Shout out to all you guys
On
out
Sunday
there.
too.
Yeah, on a Sunday, it'll be a long day. Or as Gio, I don't know. I gotta ask Gio personally if he actually stays up just to 3:30 a.m. at that point. Um, but yeah, listen, we knew what happened, which was basically the start of the debacle of the season against Parma.
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be poetic to kind of get that turnaround now against them? Milan here, I think are going to be going for it. They're going to be able to start all their players. We saw Pulisic come on late. We'll see if he sort of gets a start, kill off the game. I think obviously the very important thing with the Champions League is that Milan only need a draw, so they don't have to worry too greatly about that fixture. But it would be a huge boost. I would say this. I don't know how many times we got to say it. You have to beat these sides. There's zero excuses. Um, They should have and could have won that game at home. Sorry, away to Parma, where they got exposed on the flank. Teo Hernandez was a disgrace. Leao's bad switch that ended up hurting them. So for Milan here, listen, there's zero excuses. You have to step up in this situation. And for me, against a side who ranks 16th, 36 goals conceded, 26 scored. There's they're 1 point off the drop.
They just lost 5-0 to Roma, by the way. Also,
And Roma's terrible.
yeah.
Okay. Or was that? No. That was in December. They lost 5-0. I think you're looking at it in reverse. They
Oh
faced
yeah.
Torino, draw,
Yep.
Genoa 1-0 loss, draw against Venezia. Regardless, those are not good teams.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing left to say. Start your key guys. Go in there, put in a performance worthy of the fans applauding. Morata will be back for this one. He's eligible to play. He was suspended against Juventus. We'll see who ends up starting on the right wing. I believe Chukwueze will be allowed to play back in this one. He's returned to training. Loftus-Cheek as well. Right back position. We could see Calabria start this one, most likely. Kyle Walker is taking his medicals today for Milan, so we should see the announcements shortly with him. Your quick 2-second or 2-minute preview and prediction against Parma, Matt.
Yeah, so I just want to real quick include the projected from Gazzetta. This way you guys can have an idea of who we're going to potentially put out there. So Magnon, Calabria, Gabbia, Tomori, Hernandez, Benacer, Fofana, Reinders in a midfield 3. Obviously, that's not going to be very cemented and solidified. Obviously, we've seen Reinders push forward a little bit more. Pulisic, Morata, and Leao. So that is based by all accounts as good as of an 11 that you can expect right now with the guys that we do have. There's no excuses. This Parma team, as you mentioned, right, they're a couple points off relegation. They had a good start to the season. Dennis Mann, some of the other players, they did catch fire, but they've definitely cooled off. They concede a ton of goals. There's no excuses. Milan have their key guys here. They should go for it. I would love to see a bludgeoning. I would love to see a 3-0. Like, we're going to take it out on them because they obviously hammered us in the first game. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to make this game easy on ourselves because we just truly never do. So I'm going to go 2-1. We're going to concede another goal. I do think that Rafa will score. And I actually also think that Fofana will provide an assist in this game. To who? I don't know. But I do think Milan will win 2-1.
2-1, reverse score line of the first fixture.
Yeah.
Bro, I don't know. So Jack, yeah, you always steal my score lines. I'll just go 1-0 Milan. More of the same. Good creation, poor finishing. Watch them score like 5-1 victory. It'd be very funny. Listen, again, just get the 3 points. Lazio face off against Fiorentina. It's a very important fixture for both of these clubs. We'll
Juventus
see how
and Napoli
Juve.
too.
Say again.
I think Juventus has Napoli.
Yes, Juve and Napoli. So we'll see a drop in that one. So very good shot for that as well. Lazio, Fiorentina. So these are all teams in front of Milan that Milan should be taking care of. Hopefully, Empoli can do something against Bologna. That would be nice. Como, Atalanta, we kind of see where that one might be headed. But again, this is just where Milan have to step up and pick up the 3 points. I don't have much else left to add. Pretty quick episode for you guys here. We don't have much time today. Again, thank you guys all so much for the support. Like, comment, subscribe. Get us on all your Apple and Spotify podcasts that you guys listen on. Again, follow Matt everywhere at Matt_Santangelo at AC Milan Bros. Follow us on Twitter at that Milan Pod. And then at Martino Pucci everywhere for my socials. Any other last comments, or are you good?
I think I'm good, guys. Thanks for supporting. Hopefully we have some more developments with Santiago Gimenez, of course. If we do get them, maybe we'll record something, but most likely not because we're kind of stretched thin at this point, as you could tell with a shorter episode this week. So thank you guys for supporting.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.